Welcome to Pals Fundamentals. You can find more reports like this on our YouTube channel with all the sources linked below. Today, we'll cover international and local news and finish off with a full weather report for the week ahead.
Let's get started with some international news. The EU Foreign Affairs Chief, Kaja Kallas, cautioned the U.S. about going for a peace agreement in Ukraine without Ukraine or Europe being involved. She said that any agreement without them would be likely to fail and that in the past concessions have backfired. Kallas said that Europe would keep supporting Ukraine if they decided to resist.
Callas also had something to say about the U.S.'s suggestion that Ukraine might give up territory and NATO membership as part of any peace deal.
Yeah, she criticized that idea, and this is different from what former U.S. President Donald Trump said. He suggested direct negotiations with Vladimir Putin. But it is worth noting that Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, did speak with Trump over the phone.
Moving on to Germany, there was an incident in Munich where a car drove into a crowd.
Yeah, this happened at Dachauer Strasse, Seidelstrasse, and 28 people were injured, 2 of them seriously. Bavarian Minister-President Markus Söder said this looks like an attack. The suspect is a 24-year-old Afghan asylum seeker.
Alice Weidel, who's the leader of the AfD party, gave her condolences to the victims and said that changes to migration policy are needed. Okay, so let's switch over to local news here in the Faroe Islands. There's been a pretty big debate in Parliament about the future of POSTA, our national postal service.
Right. It all comes down to PASA losing money because of its universal service obligation. They have to deliver mail to the entire archipelago, even to those really remote places where it doesn't make financial sense. Some members of parliament say this puts POSTA at a disadvantage compared to private businesses that can just pick and choose where they deliver.
So, what are some of the ideas for fixing this?
Well, there's no real agreement on that in Parliament. Some people want the government to give PUSTA money to keep those core operations going so they can keep up with their universal service obligation without, losing so much money. But some others aren't so keen on the government getting directly involved and think we should look at some other options.
Then there's this issue with the Data Protection Authority. They've reprimanded the Ministry of Health for a data privacy violation.
Oh, right. So there was this person, they'd already appealed some decisions about appointments in institutions run by the Ministry of Health, and then they made another appeal. And during the second appeal, the ministry actually shared information about that first appeal with a different institution. And while you can't do that, it's a violation of data protection rules because they shared personal information without getting proper consent.
Turning to Greenland now, Ernirak Lundblad, a 22-year-old man, has been sentenced to indefinite detention for killing an 82-year-old woman in Nuuk 2 years ago.
The Greenland High Court decided to uphold the previous ruling, even though the defense tried to argue for a shorter sentence. This murder was really violent. It happened 2 years ago and has been described as particularly brutal.
In other news, the Speaker of the Faroe Islands Parliament is visiting Greenland on a diplomatic trip. Okay, so let's take a look at what the weather's got in store for us this week.
All right, from Thursday to Sunday, looks like we've got fresh to brisk easterly winds coming in, somewhere between 5 and 10 meters per second. And it'll be, mostly cloudy or partly cloudy. You might see a bit of drizzle, too. Temperature should be between 2 and 7 degrees Celsius, dropping a little to 1 to 6 degrees by the weekend, and we could see some sleet then as well.
And then going into Monday, those easterly winds will swing around to southeasterly, but they'll be about the same speed, 5 to 10 meters per second. Skies will be changeable, I guess you could say, with a chance of both drizzle and sleet. Temperatures are going to stay pretty steady between 1 and 6 degrees.
Tuesdays, when things start to get a bit more interesting, those southeasterly winds are going to pick up quite a bit, getting up to 8 to 13 meters per second, and then even stronger gale force, in fact, later in the evening, could be 10 to 15 meters per second. Doesn't look like there'll be much rain, though, mostly dry, and temperatures should climb a bit, up to 3 to 8 degrees.
And that brings us to the end of our Faroe Islands news report for today. If you're looking for more in-depth stuff, make sure to head over to our YouTube channel, Pals Fundamentals. You can find it linked below, along with all the sources for today's stories. Thanks for listening. 7976.